Hello and welcome to another episode of Seven Story Podcast. I'm Natasha Kyler and I'm here with today's featured author, Onika Howdyn. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Onika Howdyn, and I'm a fantasy author, indie fantasy author. Um, I started writing, I guess, as most people do when they're kids, but I never really took it seriously until I was way, way older. I guess I fell in love with fantasy as a child. I loved movies like The Dark Crystal, The Last Unicorn. Those are movies that I really, really would watch religiously and kind of developed my love for fantasy. And then obviously Lord of the Rings was a big staple in my life as well. I didn't start taking it seriously until about like 2017 when I decided that I really wanted to become a published author. And it was a lot of speed bumps, but eventually I published my first book in 2022. That wasn't fantasy; it was a different genre. It was just contemporary. But I did recently publish my fantasy book, my first one, uh, this year. So that was really exciting. Um, but yeah, that's me.
It's awesome. And can you tell us a little bit more about that fantasy book that you published this year?
I published a book. It's a dark fantasy. It's called The Dragon Favorite. It's actually the first story I ever finished, and I finished it when I was in college back in 2012. Um, and then I didn't publish it until now because it went through a lot of rewrites. It took a long time to write this to kind of have the story right. So definitely was a passion project because I would put it down and pick it up again, then rewrite it, and then put it down, pick it up again a lot of times, at least 3 times. And I never actually pushed to publish it until 2024. I was like, this is the year I'm getting this book written. So it's a fantasy book about um, a girl named Amalia who lives in a typical fantasy setting, a fantasy kingdom called Joro, and she lives in on a farm with her family, and she really wants to see the world and to explore the world. And this is a world where humans and dragons live in the same world. There's a lot of backstory with like the history of dragons, and they're known as the Drothrind in the book, and how they had this big war with man, and then right now is 100 years prior to is past that, and um, dragons are being hunted down and hunted by the king, and they're seen as abominations. Magic is something that's not seen as something that's preferred. So any magic wielders or dragons, anything to do with magic, is strictly forbidden, and they don't want anything to do with it. And Amalia wants to kind of see the world. And one day she wakes up, and the farm help on wakes her up and they find a dragon in the lake, and it's wounded. And instead of running away, she helps it, and that kind of starts the whole story of her and how she gets kind of balled up in this um into like the magical world of that is said to be forbidden. There's a lot of themes of motherhood in there, and there's a big themes of like postpartum depression. When I first wrote this story, it was very bad. So I definitely wouldn't have published the first draft of this book when I first wrote it. But it kind of evolved over time with just me living my life. I got married, I became a mom. Um, I so I went through postpartum and postpartum depression. And I heard a lot of stories about it from other women as well. I had the pleasure of working as a podcast editor, and one of the podcasts that I edited for was a postpartum podcast. So I got to hear a lot of great like medical guests on there, a lot of people that work in the mental health space for women, and a lot of the content was about women's health, especially around pregnancy and postpartum after and just raising kids. So I took a lot of my inspiration from that because it's just something that I think now it's getting better, but at the time I didn't feel like a lot of people knew about just how devastating that time can be for some people. and how hard it is and how overlooked it is, that, oh, it's just a phase, it'll get better, kind of thing. And there's a lot more behind it. So the story really has a big focus around women's health, both physical and mental health, that Amalia goes through in the story. Um, so that was a big component of the novel, and something that I really wanted to just kind of have in there, just to make people more aware of that. Even though this isn't a fantasy setting, like that, this stuff really happens to people. So that was really, really important to me, as well as the dragons and the magic and all that other fancy stuff. But that was like the big central theme of the book. And I couldn't have written that in there if I didn't experience it myself and have it sit on a shelf for 10 plus years before actually like adding it in there. So it was definitely a long time to have that book done, but I'm super happy that it's out there now, and um, it's just a big accomplishment to get my first story that I ever wrote is actually published. So I'm very, very, very excited about it.
Yeah, congrats to that. It's very important that you are speaking on an experience that you had, and like postpartum isn't something that people talked about a lot. We're just now starting to get to a place where people are comfortable talking about it, and it's a very difficult thing from what I hear. It's very different for different women. It's a lot, and so it's very important that you're representing your story as well as the story of other women that probably need that representation and like need to feel that comfort.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that a lot of people read like to escape reality and things like
Mhm,
that, but I think it's really important that you have those relatable experiences in
mhm,
there, especially those with characters that you can 100% see yourself like mirroring or being like, oh, that this happened to me, like this is exactly what happened to me. So, and like you said, it's something that hasn't really been at the like right now. I think, like you said, it's getting better, but I think before it was just kind of, it wasn't something that people really were concerned about or thought that was something concerning. But I think it's
mhm.
that kind of gives credit to the people right now that are out there that are really pushing for it, and being advocates for that. So I like to think of this book as like an advocate, kind of, just so like, hey, like this is really happening. This is like, if you've gone through this, like you're not alone. Like there's other people who've gone through this just like you. So I really wanted that to be reflected in the main character. Um, and she makes a lot of bad decisions because of it, but it's coming from this place that a lot of people, I think, can see themselves in if they've gone through something similar.
And what was that process like, fusing this real world experience with a fantasy world where there's magic and dragons and things?
It was probably easier than a lot of people would think. I did a lot of world building for this book before really like ironing out the details of this one. Um, Before I finished this book that I published, I actually wrote a number of sequels beforehand. So I have like this whole map of like world building. I had it all set up before. I even like went back to that book to refine it, which was really, really great, because when I first wrote it, I just was writing a story, and I didn't have any backstory or any like, history written or anything like that. So the fact that I had all of that and I really developed so much of it, it was really easy to go back and infuse that all and kind of like, okay, well, this is where it's gonna go. So how can I like, but where did it come from? Like, so I have to like set like the ground, like the foundation of it. This is like the foundation book. So it was really not that hard to help develop that in this book, because I did it in the sequels that I have the drafts for already. Um, I think the hardest part was just trying to, because now I'm gonna now that I have it all in this one, I have to kind of tweak the other ones, because a lot of it changed too. Because
Mhm.
like things that I thought would work, but I was like, okay, it can't work because XYZ factor or whatever, or the stories changed. I definitely added a lot of lore to this book as well. So there's a lot of like folklore in it, as far as like songs and poetry, and just stories about like their the people that like the god like their gods, their so-called gods, which are dragons, and like the woman in the dragon wars in the past, there was a woman who saved everyone. Her name was Marin, so I developed her whole story as well. So it was a lot of story developing. A lot of things changed. So I have to go, once I hit those other ones, I have to go back and change everything. But it probably won't be as taxing because I already have it all. But so it wasn't too difficult, thankfully.
You started talking a little bit about some of your characters. Do you meticulously plan them? It kind of sounds like you do based on how you already have like sequels already kind of mapped out.
Yeah, so um for so the main character Amalia, I've had in my head I since I first put pen to paper with this story. But she changed drastically, and so did the first time I wrote this story. I only had four characters, and it was only Amalia, her husband Wesley, uh, Tristan, and her father, and Amelia's father. Those are the only four characters I had in the story to begin with. Now there's like I think seven or eight in there that are main. And I think what kind of happened is that when I since I wrote the sequels before I even like really developed this book, I kind of when I went back to what I said, I need to have like a more supporting cast because in order to make it more robust and structurally sound. And a lot of it was just kind of piecing together like who was going to support someone where. And a lot of the characters that I have in this book didn't exist until the sequels. And then I went back and like the things that I wrote, I would pull characters from those and I put them in this one because I knew they would fit the story. And I really liked that it kind of helped with that process because like now I know the origins of these characters as opposed to they're introduced later on and they just kind of come up and you're questioning. The readers have more of a backstory of who they are before all that other stuff happened, which I think is really cool. Because I like surprises in books. I like people figuring out puzzles in books, but I also like the reader knowing more than the actual characters do. Um, so that was really fun because I like, oh, they're going to know all this, and the characters are going to be the oblivious ones. Or there's still also like a little mystery, and of course, there's always little tidbits of things like that. But yeah, the main four were very meticulous, were very much conceptualized in my head for a long time. But the other ones had to be kind of took a little longer to kind of implement because I wrote them in the sequels, and then I was like, oh well, I really want to use this character more, so how can I like introduce him earlier, and then I use them in the first book. So like for example, like Fane is one character in this book, and he's like the antagonist, but he isn't introduced until the end of book 3. And I was like, it will be awesome if he was in this one. Like you people can see him and how he was here and how much he's changed since then. And same with Tristan. Like Tristan, who's the character in this book, he's the love interest of Amalia, a love interest of hers. And you see him in the third book as well for the first time, but not till the end. And then he's in all the next ones after that. But he's so different in this one compared to book 3. Whenever that happens, so it's just so cool seeing how he was back then with her and how he's going to be 2 books from now. So that was really fun to do, just to like see how everything's going to, because from beginning to end, like I obviously know what's going to happen, but no one else does. And it's just so cool to see that with the progression of the characters. And the original plan was for me to do, so there's this duology. The Dragon Favorite is the beginning duology. So there'll be 2 books and then there'll be a trilogy. So I originally was going to publish the trilogy first and then do the duology after the trilogy was published, but I decided to flip it and do the duology first. Um, the real reason being because I just wanted the story to be first and to have it published first, 'cause it was the first one I ever wrote. But also I love seeing character growth throughout like a throughout these books that are like really robust. So I love seeing like where they come from and where they're going to end up. And I think, and also the fact that I'm giving more to the reader now, because there's going to be things happening in the duology that the characters that are focused on the trilogy will know nothing about. So
Mm.
I love just kind of having that, giving the reader some power as like, oh, I know why X, Y, Z, but they have no idea. So it's just, and how are they going to figure that out? How is it going to come up and how are they going to react to it? So I think that's the reason why I decided to do do the duology first. And plus, there's a side character in the trilogy that I kind of just made like, oh, he's just a side character. And the more I was writing him, I'm like, okay, he needs his own book. So now he's the main character in book two. He's just a really awesome, just complicated character that I just felt needed his own story. And I he's he's definitely not as developed in the trilogy, but this is like where all that happens. And I think the reader knowing like everything that happened with him before he even like comes up in that book in the next, and when he comes up next, is going to be really, really cool to see. I'm just really excited about that.
I can see like your passion as you're talking, and you're like, yeah, and then there's this. Um, and you mentioned like how you really like seeing character growth, and I can see that in how you're talking about, yeah, we're introducing these characters in book one, and then you see how much they change and evolve when you see them again in book three. So I can definitely see how you like to see certain things and how you implement that into your writing.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. Writing is fun that way because you just kind of do whatever, you can just kind of write how you want the story to go, and it just gives you a lot of, obviously you can do whatever you'd like. So I love the freedom of that and just finding your own style that way. You could definitely see like if any famous author like Stephen King, for example, like how he writes and how his I mean all his stories are different main characters, different plots and things like that, but you just know that, oh, this is him. Like if you didn't even have the titles or the know who the author was, just read the stories written in random order, you would know exactly it was the same person doing it. I just love that. It's a great way for authors to kind of like flex their creative muscles and find their style.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. Shifting into more of your experience as a writer, what does the typical day in your life look like?
I guess it's pretty normal. I mean, I have a normal job or jobs. I have kids, like I'm married, so I have a normal, you know, I guess family life. Writing is just kind of something that I do when I have time. Um, Luckily for me, I have my job offers a lot of flexibility, so I do have time to like sit down and write for a couple hours sometimes, but sometimes it's just on my phone while I'm sitting in my kid's karate class, for 45 minutes, or just in my car, just having like text to speech and saying something. Then like add this to this or whatever. So I don't really have like set writing times. I know some people have like they wake up really early. I'm not an early bird. I don't like waking up past 6 o'clock. I need to sleep. Like the only reason I'm up is to get my kids to school. And I'm also not really a night owl because I get really grumpy at night. So my sweet spot is definitely like during the day or like the midday for writing. But I don't really have like a set schedule for writing. I just write when I feel like it or write when I have time. And I never work on just one project. I'm always on multiple projects, because sometimes if I focus too much on one, writer's block happens and then I feel stuck. So I always have another draft or story to work on just to get me out of that rut. Um, which I recommend to every writer if they feel like they're stuck in writer's block, but just work on something else. Just like go outside and look at a bird and write a story about the bird. And and eventually that nail will get out of that your wheel and you'll be able to go back to what you actually want to write. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much how I roll. I'm very fluid in my I don't have like I'm not regimented. So I just write when I can and write what I feel inspired to write.
That's lovely. I'm currently the same way, but I'm trying to be more regimented and be like, yes, I want to knock these things out, but it's so difficult to like wake up earlier. Like you said, I don't like waking up before 6. I have
Yeah,
no
neither
reason
do
to.
I.
I don't want to. Um, I do find myself to be a night owl sometimes, but I just want to relax at that point. Like I've stressed enough during the day. It's my downtime, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to carve out a time. So I think I'm gonna start doing more so what you do. Whenever, just on my phone, typey type.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people need that. They need like a space to be, and they need. Some people can write with music on. Some people can write in silence. People have their own, things that they have to do to make them feel comfortable and get in the right headspace. But I think if you just give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, like you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. Like I've had drafts that I wrote probably chapter by chapter on my phone, and then I would just copy and paste it into a Word doc and eventually it became a book. So like I just did that on my phone whenever I had a chance to. So I think um, sometimes you just have to think of new ways to do things and see if they work out for you.
What is your process for completing a novel from like idea to outline to final product? I know you said that you are normally working on multiple things at once, so how does all that work together?
Yeah. So I usually, so it's funny. Some books I draft first. Like I have like an outline that I do. I do like, sorry, my cat is here. I do like character outlines. I do like beginning, middle, end. I have just do like a one-liner and try to work out the plot and do chapter by chapter outlines. That's mostly for like for my, it's weird. I do that more for my contemporary writing. Um, but with fantasy, I just kind of wing it. I don't really have like I don't really have like an outline that I do. I did start making a Bible for my world because there's a lot of things that I forget about and don't, which probably isn't good. And then when I go back to read, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So I write it down. So I have been starting to keep. I have started keeping a Bible, like a just a you know, a notebook next to my desk when I'm editing or writing fantasy, just so I can remember like main character names, main phrases, or words for different things. Um, just or like what people smell like, what people are wearing at the particular time, what kind of weapons they have, just so I don't forget when I'm revisiting it down the line. Um, but I usually, it really depends. Like the fantasy definitely takes me longer to write because I don't just sit down and write it all in like 2 months. I usually can only write a little bit at a time, and then I start getting too overwhelmed and have to move on to something else. So it definitely takes me longer to write fantasy than it does anything else. Anything else I can kind of bang out really quickly. I've started to write a lot of short stories lately, which has been super helpful because it just really gave me a break from the fantasy stuff because it's a lot. Like you need a lot for this type of writing because it's a lot of world building,
Mhm.
you know, a lot of lore, a lot of historical characters you got to create, a lot of historical moments you have to create, you know, and you have to tie it all together somehow. So it's a lot of work. Um, and even though I have so much of that already, I'm still building on it because there's still like new things to discover. And I'm right now I'm actually, what's my cat doing? Hold on 1 second. You can't eat that. Okay, sorry. He had a packing bubble, packing peanut in his mouth, and I don't want him eating.
I understand. I have a troublesome dog.
um, but like, I don't forget what I was saying.
You were talking about how much goes into writing it and how much lore and
Oh yeah,
the historical moments and things.
yeah. So the fantasy definitely takes me longer to write, and I mean, it took me a million years to finish this. Publish my first book for the fantasy, but the other drafts that I wrote didn't take me as long. Um, but it still took me a long time. Like some people can bang out books in like 2 or 3 months. It took me at least a year and a half to write any finish one fantasy draft. Like right now, I'm working on editing book two, and I just officially finished the draft. I'd say like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now I'm going back to read through the whole thing because I haven't done that since started writing it, and I'm finding things that I need to like fix already and all that. So it takes a long time. But it takes me a lot longer than anything else. Hold on, bud. You gotta wait. Sorry, my kids are at the door. Um, but yeah, so I don't really plan out fantasy. I just kind of wing it, and I have the Bible thing. And when it's done, it's done. I don't give myself deadlines for unless I know I have deadline. Like if I know I want to like submit a short story to an anthology or something, then I give myself a hard deadline. But with fantasy, I just whenever it's ready, it's ready. I know it has to also go through a lot of editing, like not just by me, but by other people, beta readers. You know, I try to get many eyes, trusted eyes on it as possible to make sure I'm writing the best story possible. So however long it takes, that's how long it's going to take. Like I'd like to get it published by next year, but you know, that's just a loose goal. It could be end of next year, could be beginning of 2027. I just kind of try my best. You gotta wait, you gotta wait.
We are starting to close up, so I did want to ask you about your indie press, Hidden Dragon Press. Can you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I started Dragon Press just kind of as an umbrella to house my fantasy novels in. just so it was all had like one roof and one thing to go under instead of just my name. But then as I was doing it, I was like, I'd really like to like do more with this. So I really wanted to start. I really want to help authors publish. Like that's what I really want to do. So the goal of the press is just to do just that, to help writers in any stage of writing, whether they just want beta readers or just want, someone to look over their draft, to people who actually want to like submit their stories and be published under Hendragon Press. So it launched end of last year. We have a great team of editors and readers. I call it our coop because I'm a chicken. I'm a chicken enthusiast. I have backyard chickens, so that was the inspiration for Hendragon. But we have a group of great editors, fellow authors and readers there to help and during the whole process. Right now, we open submissions for an anthology, which we have all our authors for, and we're getting that ready to go as far as getting that put together and hopefully published by the fall of this year, which will be our first publication. So it's super exciting, and we're hoping in 2026 to be open for full manuscripts. So not just the anthology is our baby project. So we're doing a lot of trial and error, seeing what works, what doesn't work. We're getting we're keeping it's very transparent process. Like all the authors are in on the entire publication of the anthology. I want their opinions. I want to get their 2 cents on how they feel things are going. So we hope to kind of be a press that not only helps you do the stuff, but like we're right there with you. Like we're showing you everything. You're not in the dark about anything. Just a very open and welcoming community of people who love to write and people who love just stories in general. So it's really exciting. The anthology is going really well so far. The authors are absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited to share their stories. It's going to be an anthology of stories based off of Aesop fable. So I'm super excited to have all of that kind of finalized and hopefully published by the fall.
That's super exciting. Well, we only have like a couple minutes left, so I'm going to take this time to give you the floor to tell everyone where they can find your book, The Dragon Favorite, and where they can keep up with the Hendragon Press and anything else that you may want to talk about.
Sure. So you can find me. I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm at OA Howdyn. That's OAHOWDYN. I'm also on Threads, and I have a Pinterest board as well, just under OA Howdyn. Also, you can find Hendragon Press on Instagram too, at Hendragon Press. We also have a website, hendragonpress.com. The Dragon Favorite can be found on where most books are sold. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. I also sell copies straight from Hendragon Press website. You can get signed copies from shipped directly from me if you go to hendragonpress.com/our store. All the books and other things are on there as well. And I'm also on Substack. Hendragon Press is on Substack at hendragonpress.substack.com. Those are all the places you can find all the things about the press and what we're doing. So it's really fun. Instagram's where I mostly hang out. So that's where you're going to find most of the things.
Okay, it was so lovely talking to you. That's it for this episode of Seven Story Podcast. Thank you, Onika Howdyn, for joining us and sharing your story. Make sure y'all go check out The Dragon Favorite and Hendragon Press. Until next time, I'm Natasha from Seven Story Podcast.
Thank you.